Hi and welcome to the Hidden Div. In today's video I'm going to show you how to add your own 404 page to your website. This can be quite useful because basically if you ever have a broken link on your website, it helps direct people back to where they should be. Ideally you'd never have broken links on your website anyways, but it's always a good fallback to have. So let's get started with that. So to begin with, you want to select the Hello Elementor tab in your WordPress dashboard and then click Theme Builder. From here you'll see a few different template choices. You want to select the Error 404 template. At this point you'll be given some sort of basic templates that you can choose from, but for this example we're just going to kind of create our own. So now we're going to be left with a blank page, and from here we'll start to build our 404 page. So firstly what we're going to do is click the plus button here and select Flexbox, and then we're going to select the first option, which is the arrow facing down. So for this example, what I'm going to do is I'm first going to go to content width, and I'm going to select this as a full width flexbox, and that's just to take up the full width of the page. At this point, I'm also going to set a minimum height because I want this to take up the full size of the page. So I'm going to click the drop down and select the vertical height option and set that to 100. So that's going to take up the full page essentially. So at this point, I am also going to go in and edit some of the template of the page itself. At the minute, you still see that the header is being pulled in, so we want to remove that with it being the 404 page. So we're going to click Settings, and on the page layout, we're going to select Canvas. And as you can see, that's now removed the header section of the page, and if there was a footer, that would also be removed. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of keep this pretty straightforward. With a 404 page, it doesn't need to be anything too complex, just something nice and straightforward, kind of directing people back to where they need to be, which is usually the home page, or maybe mention some of the most popular links on your website, for example. So we're going to start by styling this first initial container. We're going to select the Style tab, and then we're going to go to Background and then Background Type. Select the paintbrush tool here, and in the color box I'm just going to select quite a dark color, kind of like an off black color. So now we've got this nice sort of like dark backdrop for our 404 page. I'm then going to click the add element option, and I'm going to search for an image, and we're going to drag this in. As you can see, this is quite large at the moment, but we can reduce that down. I'm going to select an image, and I'm going to go to my media library, and I'm just going to select my logo. So what I can now do with this is I can actually go along to the advanced tab and set the width to custom, and let's just say this is going to be 250 pixels, which is now showing there. That's a much more, a much more friendly size that we can work with. I'm going to go back to the container, and I want to center all my content both vertically and horizontally. So to do this, we're going to go to the Layout tab and select Justify Content Center and Align Items Center. So that kind of centers everything off nicely for me. So next, I'm just going to add a simple heading, which can sit below that, and we will just type in 404 error. Change the color of that, so select style and change the color of the text to white. And then we're also going to go to typography, and we're going to make the size of the text, let's say 52 pixels for this example, or maybe a little bit larger, 62 will go. And we're going to make that bold, and we're going to select the font family, and we're going to go for Poppins. There we go. So what I can then do is also I'll select this as an H1 tag, and then I will right click and duplicate this from the structure tab, and underneath we are going to go, we can't find, actually so say this link appears to be broken. and we'll just put that as a paragraph for now, and we'll reduce the size of this to, yeah, that's a bit better. So what I'll do, as you can see, there's a bit of a gap in between all these elements at the moment, so I'm going to go back to the container and I'm going to choose the gaps and select 0. So that removes all of the gaps between the content. I'll actually add a bit of margin to the top of the error tag, 20 pixels above. And if we go back to the image as well, I'm also going to add a bit of a border to it just to make it look a bit neater. So we'll say border type solid, 2 pixels, and we'll select that as white. And there's a bit of a square box on this now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just round this off using the border radius, just so that it hugs the image a bit nicer. So at the minute we've just got a nice clean logo followed by the 404 error, and then got a little bit of text saying, oops, this link appears to be broken. Okay, so we're now just going to add in a button below this. So if we click the add element again and type in button, and again we can click the advanced tab and set the margin as 50. We'll just do a much bigger gap on this one. And for this button we can just type in return home, and then for the link you can literally just put a / and that will take you back to your home page. We can now look to style this button a bit as well. So if we click the style tab, we can select the text as white. We can put the background type as, if we go to the bottom here, we can actually change the transparency. So we'll take that right the way down, and that'll give us a transparent background on our button. As part of this, we can then set a border radius, a border width of 1. Select that as white also. The radius can be 0, so we can square the button off. And then we can also add our own padding if we want to make the button larger. So let's say, for example, we can do 20 pixels up, and then 40, 20, and 40. That gives us a nice big button there to work with. So we can also add a hover effect to this button as well. So if you go back to the button element on your structure, you can see that you've got normal and hover state. If we select hover, we can now change all of these effects to have a hover effect on them. So firstly what we'll do is we'll change the text to sort of a dark grey. The background type can be white, and we'll keep the border color as white as well. And what should now happen is you now get a bit of a hover effect on your button, as you can see there. And this just kind of adds another little bit of element of, you know, start to your page and a bit more of a slick sort of finish. So what we can do now is we've added in the return home button, we've added in the text, and we've added in the logo. So at this point you could add some more links in or some more text. If there's any sort of additional links you want to add, obviously feel free to. But for the purpose of this video, I think this is kind of enough for a pretty straightforward 404 page. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit publish, and then we're just going to see that the template says to include 404 page, and then click save and continue. And there you have it. You now have a 404 page set up on your website. So what we'll do is we'll actually now go and test that out. So if we copy the website URL and we paste this and just type in a random broken link, so we may just say test-page. This page doesn't exist on my website, so when I click this, it'll come back as 404 error. Oops, this page does not exist. And we can then click the return home button to return to the home page. Thanks for watching.